Way back before Ford bought the place up and began renovations, I used to urbex at the Michigan Central Station in Detroit. For those that don't know, the old Central Station is a huge 18-story building with that gigantic pitch-black basement. Back then, there were a few ways to get in, but by far the best entrance, which was least likely to get you caught by security, was a tunnel dug underneath the steel wall of the train garage next to the station. It wasn't a particularly long tunnel. It just went deep enough into the ground to clear the wall, but then it came right back up again into the compound on the side, and gave you a straight shot in and out. Like I already mentioned, the light shining out from within the building could easily be seen by people walking past the building outside, which at the times we visited the place would most likely be the cops or security. This particular trip to the station would be my last for a number of different reasons, and the guys I had with had much less experience doing urban exploration, particularly of this building. My buddy C had been once before, but hadn't been through the entire building. And this other guy we found online had never visited the dog before he went inside. I explained the thing about being careful with flashlights whenever the hazards we'd be facing, and I especially made it clear that the security guards patrolling around the building would be pretty thick from around midnight to 5 or 6 in the morning. Then after the little mission brief, we headed there in the evening, and by the time we got there, it was almost night. Getting inside was basically the easiest part, and I think how easy it was gave us all a sense of overconfidence. We milled around C's car until we saw one security guy drive by the tunnel entrance, and the second he turned the corner. We went one by one into the tunnel and back up again into the garage. After that, we began to properly explore at our leisure. A big motivation for wanting to get inside was that the station was known for being the go-to place for some absolutely incredible graffiti artists. I'm talking cream of the crop at the Detroit street art scene. I think one of the main attractions for me personally would probably be the 13th floor, as the graffiti was all based around all these dark subjects like the devil, the underworld, all super creepy stuff like that. We took our time drinking all that stuff and taking pictures and stuff, and then headed up even higher to what I considered the mother lode of Detroit urbex, the station's roof. We made it all the way up there without so much as a hitch and gazed out in awe at the 360-degree view of Detroit. Up there, he felt like a king, like he owned everything the light didn't touch, to kind of steal a line from the Lion King. Again, pictures were taken, but instead of the near constant chattering that went on while we were exploring the 13th floor, all three of us stayed completely silent. A testament of just how incredible the view was. Then when we were done, we started making our way back down. But this is where things started to go horribly wrong. Robbie, completely contradicting all my warnings, kept turning his flashlight on to look at different patches of graffiti. I had to continuously tell him to turn it off, but it was like he turned into a child. He just wouldn't listen to a word I was saying. Then C kept going off on his own to look at stuff, even though staying in a tight group is what kept you relatively safe. Then as we kept moving down level after level, CC is one of the open elevator shafts around the 8th or 9th floor and decides that he wants to throw a glass bottle down it just for fun. I plug to him that it's not worth getting that close to it, but it's too dangerous. But once again, he didn't listen. It was like all the overconfidence had completely ruined any kind of professionalism or discipline we had, and it almost killed us who said he'd be careful dismissing me like I was an overprotective parent or something. And then he starts walking over towards the open elevator shaft. He throws the bottle and then leans into the shaft to watch the bottle fall with his flashlight. But then, to my absolute horror, he slips on a broken piece of flooring and falls into the elevator shaft 10 stories up. I ran over to the shaft in a panic, thinking I was about to see one of my best friend's lifeless bodies all the way down at the bottom. But by some kind of miracle, he'd managed to grab some of the elevator cables as he fell, and was only maybe 2 or 3 floors below us, hanging on for dear life. When he caught his breath, he let out the loudest scream for help I'd ever heard. I told him to hang on, to not let go no matter how much it hurts his hands. It was that or die. Me and Robbie then sprinted as fast as we could to the staircase, and then nearly killed myself in the process, As I leaped down the staircase trying to get to the floor I believed he was closest to when he got to the elevator shaft and looked in. I saw that he was right above me between floors, still begging for help. I told him he was too far up, and that if he wanted to live, he would have to come down a bit closer for me to be able to grab him and hang on. He was in tears, crying, telling me, "I can't do it, man. I can't do it." And I could see the blood running down his arms from where he'd sliced both his palms from grabbing those cables. I told him he had to, but he had no choice. But again it was due as I said, or would be all over for him. I gave him words of encouragement and told him to fight the pain, but that he had to slide down just a little more, and that if he did what I knew he could do, that everything would be okay. I swear to God, I've never seen anything so brave. He just kind of sucked it up and slowly worked his way down. But that didn't mean that he wasn't howling in pain the whole time. He screamed, but he did it. He worked his way down until we got close enough that me and Robbie were able to reach out and pull him in. His hands were a bloody mess, 2 thick gashes across both of them. So I took off my undershirt and wrapped up both of his hands, not because he was going to bleed to death or anything. I just wanted to feel like I was doing something, and also the calming down as best I could, because getting caught would still mean getting busted for trespassing. And the noises that he was making would definitely get us caught. As relieved as I was that he was alive, I still wanted to beat him for his stupidity. So after chewing them out for being so stupid and choking up with tears as I did it, I told them that it was probably time that we get out of there. I thought it was all over, that the worst was done, but that wasn't entirely true. As we made our way down the remaining floors and into the main lobby, I see Robbie stop in his tracks, quickly back up and turn around. Even in the dark, I watched him turn pale. I asked him what was wrong, and only said cops. For Detroit police officers just entered the lobby from the main entrance. Someone must have heard all the screaming and called 911. I looked at both Robbie and C, and with a voice that was shaking with fear, told them to follow and fast. I took them through a maze of hallways, each of us running on nothing but adrenaline. The only thing was I hadn't actually explored the places we were running down. So after a minute or two, we hit a dead end with nowhere to go except a pitch black room next to us, which meant we had no other option but to slip into the room and stand as still as we could against the walls. I didn't have to tell them to stay quiet as much as they'd been acting dumb before. They knew better than to make any sound by that point. And I'll never forget the sound of the cops' radios going off and footsteps getting closer. But then remember hearing another sound to the drip, drip, drip of blood running off the pieces of my undershirt that was wrapped around C's hands. A few minutes went by, that dripping sound carrying on the whole time, before one of the cops started walking down our dead-end hallway, his flashlight beam bouncing in and out of the room. We all stood, but somehow never actually touching any of us. I kept thinking the sound of dripping blood would give us away, but looking back on it now, I think he just figured it was a dripping pipe or something. We all held our breath as he was a few feet away from the room, and then heard him say on his radio, "Always clear." I wanted to let out the biggest sigh of relief in my life, but I couldn't. None of us could. We all just stayed silent as he turned around and proceeded back down the hall. We stood there still and silent for what seemed at least a half an hour, but it couldn't have been any longer than about a minute or two. I could hear my heartbeat inside my ear canals like a drum, just this booming until it finally started to slow down and less than an intensity. We waited until it was dead silent and then crept our way back to the train garage, just slowly and quietly as we could, and made our way out. The car ride home was dead quiet, and I never went back to the train station again. We were just focused on getting to the hospital. That was 8 years ago now, and I think about that whole thing at least once a week. Our lives and our freedoms were on the line, but some kind of miracle kept anything serious from happening to us. I guess I should be thankful that all I have are the memories, because Percy, he has the scars to remind him to.